It's time. It's time for me to talk about the books that built me. It's time for We Just Want You to Read. My name is Darren. I'm one half of this channel, and I'm going to get into it. Give me a minute. So, if you have not watched Paige's last video on guilty pleasure reading and reading as what's real reading and the conversation around book talk not being and booktube and bookstagram not recommending real books, it's a really important conversation, and it's something that I actually wanted to respond to while also talking about the books that built me and owning up to the fact that I used to be that asshole that was like, oh, that's not real reading. Twilight isn't real reading. To use her example, and also an example from my real life of things that I have said to other people, like girl on girl crime, really. When I was in high school and I read Twilight because I was like, I want to understand what I hate. Girl, be so for real. That was embarrassing. That was pick-me behavior, and now I still don't like Twilight, but now it's because I just don't enjoy the story, from a feminist outlook. I don't enjoy the story. It's not that's not real reading. I read Jane Austen. Yikes. Ew. Bad behavior. Anyways, so I wanted to address that and talk a little bit more about what Paige said, qualifying things as real reading. I'm so sorry if you can hear my cat screaming at me. He has the worst timing and he just touched my butt and I didn't like that. Anyways, cut that out or don't. Back to it. So real reading, again, watch Paige's episode. I think that she sums it up really well. And so I wanted to jump on that and do a book that built me. And also my 2 cents on it, which I don't think we've ever really addressed on the YouTube channel why we call this We Just Want You to Read. But we both live in the United States, and in the United States, it's something like 21% of adults are illiterate. Flip it on the other side, and it still sounds bad. That's, 79% of adults are literate in the richest nation in the history of the world. It has a lot to do with how we gatekeep reading, and we shame people. I'm so sorry for that background noise. We shame people for reading the books that they want to read. It is that simple. We're shaming them for reading what they want to read and enjoying the stories that they enjoy. And so We Just Want You to Read was born because I'm a book lover. And Paige is a book lover. Paige is also a library worker. And we're both on Instagram. We're not really on TikTok. But Paige is really into BookTube, which is why we're on BookTube. But it's like this idea that if you're not reading over 100 books a year, you're not really reading. But on the other hand, if you're reading just smut and romance, that's not real reading. And if you read only Tolstoy, you're an elitist prick. So you're not really a relatable reader. And we just there's this huge conversation happening where people are gatekeeping the joy of reading. And obviously the whole world is not the United States. There are countries that have literally 100% literacy. Looking at you, I think it's Sweden, maybe. And Denmark, perhaps. But the whole point of this channel is that we want you to read, and we don't really care what you're reading as long as you're reading. Reading is so good for you. It encourages empathy. It makes your brain work in a way that is magical. A really good example is right now I'm in a little bit of a book rut, and so I picked up books that I reread maybe once a year, maybe every other year. It's the Old Kingdom series by Garth Nix. We're going to talk about those at another time. Because those are absolutely books that built me, and I want to do a longer video on them and be a little more in-depth because I'm just that crazy about them, the same way that I am about Tamora Pierce. But I'm listening to them again, which is reading. Audiobooks are reading. Okay. And they are so magical and engrossing I think my dog is tired of going for walks because I'm like, all right, let's go. Gotta listen to my book. And I can't do it if I'm not walking for whatever reason. And so I think that there is a conversation to be had around the way that social media is gatekeeping reading and making it seem as though you have to read a certain type of book or a certain number of books to be a reader. If you read books, you are a reader. It's the same kind of like parallel of the whole backlash against having a bikini body. If you have a body and you put a bikini on it, you have a bikini body. If you have a book and you read that book, you're a reader, and you don't have to quantify it or qualify it in any other way. So I wanted to take a step back and look back at like my history of being a snobby little asshole. And when I was in college, I was an English major, and I cut my teeth on like, I wrote my capstone project on civil rights literature and this whole thing. So I took courses on Jane Austen and Shakespeare and the American pastoral and, you know, things like that, and like really heavy courses. One of the last courses I took was on slave literature and the works of enslaved people that were written down, and studying them and how they impacted the fight for emancipation both in Britain and in the United States. And that was one of the hardest courses I took, not because the language was too difficult or different or anything like that, but it was a really difficult course because it was such a heavy and disturbing content. And so I got out of school and I hit like the biggest reading slump of my life. I don't think I read a book for like 3 months, which doesn't sound like that much, but I read like 10 books a month. This year I'm also kind of having a situation where I'm only reading about 6 books a month, and I feel like I'm not reading as much as I normally do. And like, that's crazy because 6 books a month is more than most people read. And it's everybody's personal thing. Anyways, back to the point. The point is that I didn't read a book for about 6 months, and finally I was like, I think I just need something light and fun. And because I just got out of school and I just read all these horrific accounts, and because there are, you know, high fantasy often revolves around the idea of like a dystopian reality, or and same with sci-fi, like they revolve around this idea of like a totalitarian government and all these different things. And so I was like, I need something really light. And I was really embarrassed that I went and read like everything that my library had of Nicholas Sparks. And I gotta be honest, I now know I really don't like Nicholas Sparks. Like, I just don't enjoy his stories, and I didn't really connect with them in any kind of way. But I read them all because I really needed to just break out of my rut. It worked. I broke out of my rut and I started reading my high fantasies and my sci-fis and my, you know, nonfictions and my classics and all that kind of stuff again. And I didn't think about this for a couple of years with anything other than shame. Jump cut a couple of years, maybe about 6, to moving to Nashville and discovering Parnassus, which is an amazing bookstore and has some of the best booksellers in the world. They are so kind. They are so excited about books. And I was back in a rut because we had just gone through COVID, and I had moved to this new state, and I didn't know anybody, and I didn't know how to make friends because I work from home and I am perennially inside. I don't like leaving my house. That's where the people are, and I don't want to go there. But I do need to talk about books, and I needed a way to kind of like bleed that out so that I wasn't just like word vomiting about books all over my family. And I thought the easiest way to do it would be to join the romance book club. One, because they were all paperbacks, so it was affordable to buy a paperback each month at that time in my life. And 2, because I thought that they were going to be really easy reads that I could just kind of fly through. Most romances are no more than about 300 pages. And so I was like, this is like, makes the most sense. It was, you know, wonderful. And in fairness, I didn't like most of the books that I read. It's just kind of my lot in life to be the hater at book club. It's kind of fun, actually. I just like sprinkle a little bit of dissent in there. But when I first started going, like right off the bat, I think my very first time going was a book called The Dragon's Bride, which is by Katie Roberts. And it's about a woman who ends up like forced proximity married to a dragon who has two dicks, and they just get it on a lot. And I was like, oh, this might not be the club for me. This might not be it. Because I was still like really stuck in this judgmental loop. And a few books later, we read Lunar Love by Lauren Kung Jessen, which was closed door and absolutely captured me. It was so soft and so sweet and so nuanced. And I loved reading about a woman who was unabashedly passionate about her job and really good at her job. And I loved that I knew it was going to end well. And then I got the chance to meet Lauren, and I am now like one of her super fans. I will read anything that she puts out. I will buy every single book she puts out because I think she is fantastically talented, and I love how soft and sweet her books are. In a world that is horrible and horrific, it is just delightful to read something soft and sweet and lovely. And then the next book, that was like the ice was breaking. The next book that I read, or not the next one, but eventually we read one called Something Wild and Wonderful by Anita Kelly. And I actually got Paige to read this book. This book completely changed the way that I see smut and romance novels, because it is so sweet. It is a beautiful story about a gay man who grew up very, very religious and is now no contact with his family and is trying to deal with that after coming out. And so he hikes the Pacific Crest Trail by himself and meets other people along the way and falls in love along the way. And don't get me wrong, there are some smutty scenes, and it is not safe for children. Let's just put it that way. But it was one of the most touching and heartrending stories about personal growth that I had read in a really long time. And so at that point, I was like, oh my God. Like, the levee has broken, and I like romance. And I stopped being embarrassed that I read Nicholas Sparks, although kind of still am, just because Nicholas Sparks really didn't do it for me, and started being embarrassed that I was so judgmental of people who read romance books. And so today I know this is already like a very long video, but today I actually wanted to talk about some books that built me recently, because books build you throughout your life. When you read a book that touches you and your soul so intimately, it becomes like part of you, and it shouldn't be embarrassing for you to say that, like, oh, I loved this book and it really changed my outlook on something or another. For me, that was The League of Extraordinary Women by Evie Dunmore. So this is the first one, Bringing Down the Duke. They are such fun books. So they are about women suffragettes in England in the late 1800s, early 1900s, trying to get the right to vote. And it centers around 4 women who lead the charge and their struggle for independence and the right to vote and suffrage, while also falling in love and like kind of trying to determine if men are worth it. Kind of. They are raunchy. They are funny. The women are full-fledged characters. The side characters are nuanced. There are good men and bad men. There are good women and bad women. And I devoured, there are 4 books here. Let me hold this up. Let me put this down. I read all 4 of these books in about 2 days. I gobbled them up and I loved them so much that I started trying to convince everybody that I know to read them, because it's just about feminists, fighting for feminism and getting railed in a feminist way. And I loved it so much. It built me in a way that it opened my eyes that it like reaffirmed. I was getting back into that rut of like romance isn't real reading, and it reaffirmed that romance is real reading. I learned a lot in these books. I went on deep dives based on like random sentences to be like, oh my God, is that true? And I had a good time reading them. And that's it. Books are supposed to be a good time. Reading is supposed to expand your mind. And if people are trying to gatekeep that from you, they're wrong. Not you. You're not wrong for reading the kid's book to reignite joy and love for reading. You're not wrong for reading romance. You're not wrong for reading Crime and Punishment. You are not wrong for reading Jane Austen. You are not wrong for reading Nicholas Sparks. You are not wrong for reading. You should be reading. And if anybody is trying to gatekeep that from you, they are wrong. So I'm going to end this with like a little bit more of a soapbox thing. If you are following people on Instagram or TikTok or BookTube or anything like that, that say if you don't do this, you're not a real reader. If you do this, you're not a real reader. If you are following people like that, unfollow them. Because at the end of the day, if you read, you're a reader. And you don't have to qualify or quantify that in any kind of way. You are a reader, and we just want you to read. So I hope that resonated with you. I hope you pick up Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore. My personal favorite was probably the third one, which is Portrait of a Scotsman. If you have read any of these 4 books, please let me know, because I really need to talk about them because I really enjoyed them. And just remember that you can be a reader no matter what type of books you read, or how often you read, or how much you read. You're a reader. Don't let people gatekeep that joy from you. Not in a country where we have a literacy crisis. Let's be so for real. You're a reader, and we just want you to read. Let me know if there are any books that surprised you and became part of the books that built you in the comments below. Like and subscribe. We'll be back next week. Maybe. I don't know. We both work full-time jobs, and we're both really tired. So follow us for realistic living in this world, trying to survive reading advice and thoughts. Oh my God, where's my mouse?